Hi everyone, this is Yana Smakula and welcome to another Hero Arts video tutorial. I'll show you how to do ink blending and how to fix heat embossing mistakes in this tutorial. I'm going to jump right in and start by creating an ink blended spot or highlight on my white panel. I will be using white embossing powder to heat emboss several floral images onto my background, and to make the images visible on a white piece, I'm creating a vibrant pop of color. I'm using a mix of colors from Hero Arts today. I will be using 4 colors in total, but I'm starting with the dandelion and ultra pink. So I'm blending the dandelion onto my panel using an ink blending tool. I'm picking up the ink with my tool, dabbing it to the side. I have a sheet of printer paper, and then bringing it to my white cardstock. By doing so, I can avoid having harsh, defined lines when I first touch the ink blending sponge to my paper. I'm repeating this several times, adding more and more color and making the color more intense on my background. I'm also adding ultra pink. I love how yellow and pink blend together, giving me a beautiful coral color. I'm keeping my blending to the left-hand side of my panel, and I'm using a circular motion to apply the ink. You can see I'm once again picking up the color from the ink pad, leaving some of it on the printer paper, and then blending the rest onto the background. I'm also going in a flickering motion when I'm applying the ultra pink to help spread the color further away from the center. Because I added mainly pink over yellow, there isn't any actual pink color on the background. There's lots of yellow, some coral, and a teeny tiny bit of pink. To intensify some of the coral or orange, I'm going to go back to the dandelion and going to add a bit more yellow to the mix. And you can instantly see how that makes the color area in the center pop. I'm also going to use 2 more colors, soft cantaloupe and crimson, and going to add just hints of both to my background. You can use just 2 colors to have a colorful and vibrant look. I personally adore using yellow and pink together lately, but adding a few more colors can really take your background to the next level. So once again, I'm using the same circular motion and applying the desired colors where I need them on the background. I'm going to be covering the center of the ink blended area with a die-cut circle or a die-cut mask. Now, alternatively, you could have masked the circle or basically any shape directly onto the background to avoid having additional layers. But I like to have dimension on my project, so I'm going to add the die-cut and we'll pop it up later using foam adhesive. So right now I'm checking if I like the amount of color I have on my background and seeing if I like how this looks overall. I felt I needed to add more pink, so I went back to the ultra pink and added a little bit more of that color to my background piece. The next step is to let the ink dry either on its own or use a heat tool to speed things up. We'll be heat embossing several flowers in white onto this, so we need to make sure this is perfectly dry. I didn't do a very good job in terms of waiting for my paper to be dry. I'm always impatient when it comes to this, but it didn't matter much for my card design as the messy section was covered up anyway. So I used my heat tool to dry the paper. I did a test with embossing powder to see if it was dry, and you can see it wasn't. I added embossing powder and it got stuck to the paper. So I dried it some more with my heat tool and moved on to doing my heat embossing. First, I stamped the sentiment and it reads, "Just for you." I covered that up with white embossing powder and heat set it. You can see how messy the last part of the sentiment was. It ended up being exactly in the center of my ink blending where I've added the most amount of ink and therefore the section that was really wet. I tried to clean it up with a paintbrush, but decided not to spend too much time doing that as I knew I'd be placing the die-cut circle on top of the mask and it will be covered up, so there was no need to start over and create another background. Although if this had happened on a project where I didn't plan to have a mask, I would most definitely have started over. The idea was to have the sentiment continue over to the die-cut, so I inked it up with black ink and stamped it onto the circle. By doing so, I was able to easily create a 2-color sentiment for my card. Because I wanted to have the white spotlight on my project, I needed to have the sentiment stamped in another color, and black worked perfectly here. I wanted to heat emboss flowers around the die cut circle, so I used a negative from the die cut. I placed it over the circle, grabbed the pencil, and just traced on the inside of the open area to create a guide for myself to know where to do my stamping. I used my anti-static powder tool again to make sure my embossing would be clean and started stamping the flowers following the pencil line using clear sticky ink. So basically, I was stamping these on an arc or on a hill on a card. I alternated flowers and leaves and stamped a variety of images from the Just For You stamp set from Leah, and the sentiment, by the way, came from the same set as well. I added white embossing powder and heat set it with my heat tool. I just love the look of white embossing powder on a colorful background like this one. It always looks vibrant and oh so cheerful. To help anchor the black stamped U on the die cut circle, I created another element using mostly black. So I heat embossed You Brighten My Day Cinnamon from another stamp set from Hero Arts in white embossing powder onto a strip of black cardstock. I felt like it was a great sentiment option for this particular project since it's such a colorful one. Heat embossing in white over black is never an easy task, and to tell the truth, I always have little imperfections. There is a way I like to use to clean up the embossing on black cardstock. I like to use my black Copic marker and just color over the little white dots. I've done this many times and it works perfectly, giving me a beautiful, clean embossed image. The next step was to foam mount and stick everything together. So I used foam squares to adhere the circle die cut and layered the cinnamon strip over it. First, I created a V shape on one of the sides of my black cinnamon strip and used foam adhesive on the sides of it to adhere it to the panel. So it ended up being adhered to the panel, but not to the circle. You can also see I have a diagonal element stamped in ultra pink. I had planned to use it, and I actually did use it on this card, but in the end I felt like it didn't match the colors on my ink blended background, even though it was stamped using one of the colors I used for the background. So later I covered it up using gold glitter tape, which worked so much better for this project. Once everything was adhered, I also added several clear drops and a few gold sequins. I adhered my gold glitter tape to the bottom and top parts of the card and finished making this project. So here's one more look at this card. I hope you enjoyed this video and I was able to inspire you to create. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section on YouTube or on Hero Arts blog. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!